Okay. All right. So, Madam Clerk, I imagine we need to, yep, there we go. All right. I'll call us to order, and we'll get right down to business for our police officers who are here. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the May 11th Village Board meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we are going to begin with a special session and then move into a work session. Madam Clerk?
Sure. Trustee Codman?
Present.
Trustee Bazemore?
Present.
Trustee Quezada?
Present.
Mayor Garrity?
Present.
Are there any mayors and trustees announcements this evening?
We'll wait until we go into the work session.
Village Board resolutions, there's only one resolution. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board? No?
Regarding the resolution?
Regarding the resolution? No.
Okay.
Okay, letter A, swearing in of the new police officer, Emily Hershowitz. Resolved, Emily S. Hershowitz. Resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby appoints Emily S. Hershowitz of a second-year police officer in the Village of Ossining effective May 16, 2016, at an annual salary of $62,822, second-year salary. Be it further resolved that this appointment is subject to probationary period of not less than 12, no more than 52 weeks. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
On the board. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
All right. With that.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Well, sure.
I think we could do the
Oh.
swearing in first, and then we can adjourn. How's that?
Thank you.
Can you use this?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. All righty. Okay, repeat after me. I, Emily S. Hershowitz,
I, Emily S. Hershowitz,
being duly sworn, state on my honor,
being duly sworn, state on my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself
I will always have the courage to hold myself
and others accountable for our actions.
and others accountable for our actions.
Further, that I am a resident of the state of New York,
Further, that I am a resident of the state of New York,
and I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of New York,
and I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of New York,
and I will obey all ordinances, rules, and regulations
I will obey all the ordinances, rules, and regulations
of the Village of Ossining,
of the Village of Ossining,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer
and will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer
in and for the said Village of Ossining, New York,
in and for the said Village of Ossining, New York,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to thank the mayor and the board for this opportunity to keep our staffing levels up, bring new people in. Emily is a second-year police officer coming to us from the city of New Rochelle. She grew up there. She has a bachelor's degree from Sacred Heart University and a well-rounded police officer with an interest in community policing and domestic violence issues. So we're excited to have another female with our police department. It's not every day that we get the opportunity to hire more females, so we're glad to have that. And we're looking forward to lots of great opportunities.
Thank you, officers.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank
Well, it's always a pleasure to welcome a new officer to the department. We are really pleased to have Emily joining us and look forward to seeing her on duty. How soon do we get to see her on duty, Chief?
Monday.
Monday. Very good, very good. Well, keep an eye out, and if you see Emily out in the community, I hope you'll welcome her, and we really look forward to enjoying her career here in Ossining. We don't take that many transfers, so when we have a transfer who's really going to be an asset to our community, it's a real pleasure to be able to bring somebody on who has a little bit of experience. In this case, some experience, but not so entrenched in another department that she isn't ready to learn our culture and really become part of the Ossining department. We're very excited. So, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn to work session?
So moved.
Second.
On the board, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right. So I would like to make an announcement, and really a statement. I'll use this opportunity to make a statement about a topic that is a topic of much discussion, not only in this room and among village government, but among the community and the country at large right now, and that's our water system. We've talked a lot about the Ossining water system in recent months particularly. Water is obviously a very precious resource, and the municipality takes very seriously our responsibility to provide safe, reliable drinking water. There have been some frightening stories in the news on a national level and even closer to home. Ossining residents can be reassured to know that the Ossining Water System Corrosion Control Program has been very effective over the years. All lead and copper testing have fallen well within the guidelines set forth by the county. In fact, thanks to our diligence, we qualify for reduced monitoring by the Westchester County Department of Health. The Ossining Water System has a proactive approach to providing safe, reliable drinking water through conservation, leak detection, ongoing infrastructure maintenance and upgrades, and long-term capital investment projects. We were the first municipality, in fact, to sign up to participate in the New York City DEP Water Demand Management Program, and we are already seeing significant savings from the new leak detection system that we've put in place as a result of that relationship. Finding leaks alleviates demands on the system, and that's really important as we prepare for upcoming capital projects like the dam project and the new filtration plant that will help us maintain a safe, reliable drinking water system. If you'd like more details about our comprehensive approach to the Ossining water system, I encourage you to watch the April 13th work session. About an hour into the meeting, Water Superintendent Andrew Teese gave a very thorough presentation on all the initiatives that are underway and what we are looking forward to in the future. You may notice that I keep referring to the Ossining water system without specific reference to the village. And that is because while this board appropriates all of the water fund, it's a system that serves not only the village residents, but all the residents of the unincorporated part of the town. It is one unified system that cannot be split along municipal lines. In fact, there are village residents who get water that is stored in a water tank in the town, and the water flows through an interconnected web of pipes that does not understand when it crosses the border from the village into the unincorporated town. So, with that in mind, village and town governments have been working together, exploring how we might be able to unwind past practices that can get in the way of approaching the water system from a comprehensive, optimal manner. If an infrastructure upgrade needs to happen in the unincorporated part of the town, it should be included in our capital plan schedule, just as if it would if it were in the village. That really is what makes sense for village residents as well as town residents, because as I said, it's all one system. The water just flows through the pipes. However, $1 of water in the village costs $1.50 in the town. Same water, same system, other side of the municipal border. So why not one unified rate? Well, because the village has the choice of what we want to charge our outside of the village customers. The state allows a municipality with water to charge any rate they want to an outside customer. It could be 1.5 times, it could be 2 times, it could be 3 times if we wanted. On the flip side, usually public utility properties. In fact, all of the publicly owned properties in Ossining, whether it's schools, library, municipal properties, do not pay property taxes. We do for all of our water utility properties. So it is with that in mind that the village and the town have come together with an idea. And what that means right now, we're at a stage where the village has made a request to all the taxing entities that are connected to any of our water properties, which includes the Ossining schools and library and a little bit in the Briarcliff schools and the town of Newcastle. And we've just now begun having conversations with those other taxing entities. And we are very, very grateful that all of our counterparts, administrative and elected boards, to this point, have been very receptive to considering the request. It has taken many, many months for me to educate myself to the point where I have some understanding of a rather complex system from not just a infrastructure scientific perspective, but also a fiscal perspective, and I'm grateful to the water department, the DPW, the legal and management department, and definitely our finance department to help me get up to speed. And so we are particularly heartened by the willingness of other boards to engage in these conversations. Granting tax exempt status for the water utility properties would enable us to be in a fiscally balanced position so that we are able to approach the Ossining water system in the comprehensive manner that is in the interest of everyone who drinks Ossining water. Providing safe drinking water to Ossining is one of the most important functions of this local government. And until recently, many people in our country took safe drinking water for granted. We are incredibly fortunate that the Ossining water system is managed by knowledgeable, forward-thinking professionals who have the support of this board and many boards before us. But safe, reliable drinking water does not happen by accident. The village and town boards have a shared goal of ensuring we make smart, forward-thinking decisions for our water system. And we look forward to continuing to meet with our counterparts throughout the community. We'll keep you informed as we progress through this process. Are there any announcements from my colleagues before we begin? Matters Serrano.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We have a few items on tonight's agenda, and we're going to start actually with a presentation by a village historian who has been asked by Ginsburg Development Corporation at Harbor Square to place some panels and actually present some panels to the board that will depict the history of the village of Ossining at the kiosk at the new Henry Gordine Park, which is soon to be inaugurated also. So with that, we're going to ask village historian.
I would just say that we did a fair amount of time to Dana to discuss, and I think she may have the kiosks is certainly a big project, but I think she has some other projects that I know you've been working on. I'm not sure exactly what that might entail, but we look forward to learning about it.
What do I? Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, trustees. It's been almost 18 months since you did me the honor of appointing me village historian, and I'd like to bring you up to date on what I've done in that time and also on the waterfront kiosk project that is currently underway. One of my passions is old photographs. This is a photo of Miss Larkin, a member of one of the village's wealthiest and most influential families back at the turn of the 20th century. I like to think that if I lived back in the times that I'm always researching, I would have spectacles like hers, though not the feathered hat, as I am too fond of birds. After donning the hat of village historian, I have to admit that at first I wasn't sure how to wear it. I knew I had an intense curiosity about the forces that formed this village that we call home, as well as the conviction that we can reach our full potential as a village by examining and processing our past.
My existing skill set as a reporter, writer, and storyteller has served me well. Mayor Garrity had faith that I could do the job, and I have done my best to prove her right. The first major project I undertook was a 20-minute presentation about the history of downtown Ossining. While we see many photographs about old-time Sing Sing, as we were called until 1901, hanging on walls all around the village, they seemed to me like puzzle pieces separated from the bigger picture. I try to put the pieces together, to connect the dots, to tell the story of our village in a way that is accessible and effective. I presented Historic Downtown Ossining at a Board of Trustees work session at the library almost a year ago to this day. The reaction was positive enough that my son Jesse and I turned the presentation into a 30-minute video, and with the help of your IT department, put it on YouTube, as well as the village website. As of yesterday, Historic Downtown Ossining has garnered almost 4,400 views in 6 months. Only half of them are mine, I swear. I think that's a pretty good number. I realized there are two audiences for this movie, those who remember Ossining before urban renewal and those who don't. For people who do, it was a nostalgic reminder of the village they grew up in. For those who moved here more recently, it was an eye-opening look at how social and cultural forces have shaped this place. That presentation last May opened the door to more talks around the village. Cedar Manor Nursing Home invited me to speak, and I've gone back every few months since. I've spoken at Atria on Hudson, Maryknoll, Ossining Boat and Canoe Club, twice, Ossining Rotary, 3 times, and I became a Rotarian in the process, Jesse Collier Youth Sports, and Mystic Point Condominiums. So far this year, I'm slated to speak at the Sankofa Reunion, a gathering of African-American residents whose descendants came here during the Great Migration from North Carolina. I've been booked at St. Augustine's Catholic Church to speak to their Golden Eagles senior group, and I've been contacted about speaking on the prison at the Croton Public Library. One of the most rewarding aspects of this position is when I can bring new information and clarity to an organization's history. For the 100th anniversary of the Baker Collier Christmas Cheer Fund, I was asked to research Glendon Baker, the man who started the charity in 1915. I explored the connection between him and Jesse Collier Jr., a young man who would be mayor someday, and who took up the mantle of the effort after Baker's death. I gave my findings in a speech to the 100th anniversary gala last November. Baker is in this picture. This is the only known picture of him. Right there, in the bowler hat, holding a cigar. He was quite the bon vivant, it turns out. The occasion for this photograph was the opening of the new municipal building where we happen to be right now. That's the front. That was about 1914. No one had ever seen this photo before, or at least they didn't know they'd seen it. After the speech, a former police officer and longtime Baker Collier supporter told me that he had walked past that photo for years, not knowing who it was. It turns out it had hung in the police station for a long time. I turned it up in a Google search. There were tears in his eyes when he told me this, so this is the payoff for me and for my efforts. I later repurposed this speech into an article for the winter issue of the Ossining Historical Society Museum's newsletter.
Still on the menu, yeah.
Maybe just tap on the screen.
Hit next.
Need Max.
There we go. Okay.
After that speech, I was asked to look into Mayor Jesse Collier's role in creating the local Little League in 1950. The nice part about exploring the more recent past is that there are plenty of people who remember it. And there were lots, I interviewed several people who remembered Jesse Collier and gave me wonderful anecdotes about him, including his son-in-law, Joe Holohan, and I was able to bring some fresh reporting to the subject. I was also able to clarify to the Jesse Collier Youth Sports Board, many of whom are more recent arrivals here, who he was and why he mattered, and still matters. I've put together presentations on several aspects of Ossining's history. Anybody here know where this picture was taken?
Yeah, isn't
133 and South.
Right, right. That's the intersection right here, yeah. I mean, all those buildings are gone or changed, but I found this in the files. So it includes a deep dive into, that's the first bank right there that we had, the Sing Sing Bank, and then became the First National Bank. So I did a deep dive into Pleasant Square, better known to old-timers as Hubbell's Corner, South Highland Avenue, including the estates that stood before the apartment buildings went up, and Sing Sing Prison. I gave a brief history of the prison to an audience at the Ossining Public Library recently. This is a special area of interest to me. The prison has been an often divisive presence for almost 200 years, and one cannot tell the story of Ossining without including it. The trick is to understand its evolution as a part of ours and to put it in the proper perspective. I've started interviewing the children of former prison guards to better understand the village-prison connection that was once so strong. Granted, those children are now my age, in their 50s, but the idea of Sing Sing Prison Museum has been revived, and the odds look better than ever for success. I'm honored to have been asked to serve on its board of directors. I should also emphasize that my work would not be possible without the resources of the Ossining Historical Society Museum, where I have been a trustee for several years. The museum and my conversations there were where my fascination with Ossining history began. I regularly volunteer for its programs, and I encourage everyone within earshot to join. I'm also deeply indebted to the many residents of Ossining, past and present, who have generously shared their memories, photographs, and stories with me. They are proof that it takes a village to tell its own story, and I've made a few new friends along the way. Part of my role as village historian is to collaborate with other community organizations here in Ossining. I'm particularly looking forward to working with the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy on a living history play that will take place at Sparta Cemetery next spring, where some of the people buried there will describe their lives and deaths all the way back to the 18th century. This is another inventive way to bring our incomparable history to life. Meanwhile, I've spent the past few months producing the Waterfront History Project, a series of historical interpretive panels that will be mounted on the sides of a kiosk near the Harbor Square development. Ginsberg Development Corporation is funding the project. I want to thank Miguel Hernandez for birthing the idea and laying the groundwork, and town historian Martha Masidi for helping with the writing and research. It's imperative that we get this right, so this has been a great opportunity to pull in other local historians, including John Wunderlich, Deborah Van Steen, Norm MacDonald, and Captain Scott Craven for their advice and feedback. When these walls can talk, they'll tell the story of Ossining and the Hudson River. The kiosk sits on the south side of the waterfront park area next to the playground. It's a high visibility location and one of the most scenic spots on the entire Hudson River. This is the eastern approach as you walk in from the commuter lot. There will be 8 interpretive panels, each describing a particular slice of waterfront history. Each panel will be 36 inches by 48 inches high. The kiosk has 5 sides, so the larger sides will have more than one panel. Here's the front. And then walking around, you can see the Boat and Canoe Club behind it. So these are the walls that the panels will be mounted on. You can see there's plenty of space. That's the back wall. There's room for like 4 there. And this is architect's rendering of what it would look like. The panels will be designed and fabricated in Pennsylvania by Panier Graphics and custom mounted on the kiosk. The photographs will come primarily from the Ossining Historical Society Museum. The first panel will focus on the original inhabitants, the Sing Sinks, the transfer of land to the Dutch and English during colonial times, and after the American Revolution, Sing Sing's early days as a river settlement and bustling port. We have this beautiful reproduction of Hugh Reinagel's 1830 Hudson River School landscape. We also have this newly digitized and colorized 1820 map that will run the length of the panel vertically. The Reinagel and this map have been digitized and enhanced by Sarrazin Editions. 2 other panels will have maps that show the progression of the waterfront as it's filled in and extended over the decades. This map provides the baseline for the original water line. We will honor our first Americans, the Sinks, a band of Lenape Indians that occupied the area around Sing Sing Kill. They spoke Munsee and Eastern Algonquin dialect and were part of the loosely organized Wappingers Confederacy. As far as we can tell, There is no image of an actual Sing Sing Indian, so we're offering this portrait of a Lenape chief from Pennsylvania, painted in 1735, to give an idea of what they might have looked like. The second panel is on river travel. At one time, the Hudson was very much the center of the universe and a way of making a living for Sing Sing locals. We'll focus on those shipbuilders and steamboat owners who lived here. Most prominently, the Jenks, 3 generations of a family synonymous with Sing Sing and Ossining River navigation. Jacob Jenks started out with sloops in the 1820s and pioneered the introduction of steamships to the Sing Sing waterfront. His sons commissioned the Sarah Jenks. It was Ossining's flagship. That's the prison behind it. It made daily runs to and from New York City, stopping at the prison each way for passengers and freight. We'll look at the Sarah Jenks evolution through the years from freighter to excursion ship to rust bucket. We'll talk about Thomas Collier and the speed demons of the Hudson, steamboat captains who like to race each other for money and bragging rights. These boats had a tendency to explode more often than you would like. This is the explosion of the Reindeer up near Rondout. It was built by Thomas Collier's brother, who also built boats. He was one of 8 brothers, and most of them were boat builders, which is one of the main things that you did back when boats were really, really important. We'll also describe the worst steamboat disaster that occurred off Sing Sing in 1878, the Magenta. We'll go up the river, of course. This is a late 19th century image of one of the prison's early iterations. It's hard to compress 200 years of history into one panel, so we had to be pretty selective. We'll talk about the quarries where the rock was extricated for the prison buildings and for buildings around the state and in the village. The wharf, where the term up the river was taken quite literally. The Hollywood years and Lewis Laws, which is really a great excuse to show a cool old movie poster. Prison sports, when the cheers of convict football and baseball games would drift over the walls of the prison all the way to the train station. And some infamous escapes through the years. This revolt occurred in 1868 on the wharf. We'll also describe the 1941 tragedy that resulted in the deaths of guard John Hartye and a village police officer near Water Street. That's James Fagan. And we will show the police officers and the guard, and we will name them. Finally, we'll show the protest that occurred here for Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, convicted Cold War spies put to death in the electric chair in 1953. This protest happened right on the railroad bridge, the same one we now drive over. That's Riverkeeper behind them now. A railway runs through it. The Hudson River Railway's arrival in 1849 changed the waterfront and the village forever. This was the old depot, which was at grade. We also have another great map. This is the 1852 Drips, the first to show the railway. It's fascinating to see how the railroad beds were built up in the shallows of the river. This was the station that replaced the old depot. They rose it up and put the vehicle ramp up there, although that's been changed extensively over the years. We have an old timetable from the Hudson River Railroad. And we'll also describe the prison tunnel that was built by convict labor. The railway had to go right through the prison grounds. Abraham Lincoln traveled through that tunnel twice. The first time during his inauguration journey to Washington, D.C., the second time after his assassination when he was being taken home to be buried. We'll talk about Station Plaza, a mostly extinct collection of businesses that catered to travelers. These buildings are where Riverkeeper and Metallized Carbon are now. Here's a pulled back look at that row. There's the original depot on the right. This photo was taken about 1910, right before they ripped a lot of this down. And the flagmen, and they had flagmen who waved people across. You can see the wagon skedaddling across the tracks. I mean, what the railroad did was it created a rather dangerous barrier between the businesses that were on the other side and the rest of the village. That's why they raised the next station, so that they didn't have to have flagmen. And unfortunately, collisions they happened. Several waterfront hotels catered to people traveling by boat and train. We'll take a look at those. The only one left is Depot Square Hotel, but it's now a laundromat. We'll show some trains. The industrial age. This will look at the manufacturing facilities and factories that clustered on the waterfront, as with many lower Hudson River Valley waterfronts. This, of course, is the old Brandreth Pill Factory, which was probably the first successful industry on the waterfront in the 1830s, if you don't count the prison industries. The prisons actually had steam-powered machines before the civilians did. We're going to show another map. This map from 1929 to 31 on the dawn of the Great Depression shows how concentrated the industries had become on the waterfront. So it's going to be very cool because people can literally walk from the first to the next panels to this one and see the change in the waterfront over the decades. We're thinking about putting the map in the middle of the panel this time and running photos of the factories on each side close to their actual locations vis-a-vis the tracks. So for Water Street, the east side of the tracks, going north to south, we would start with the Brandreth Pill Factory, which was to the north, later called Alcock Manufacturing. This will probably take prominence and feature an image of Benjamin Brandreth himself. I think he deserves that. That is an old advertisement. He pioneered the use of advertising to sell his products, and I just think that's a great thing to show because it has the boat and the children, and they're happy. Now, that postcard at the bottom shows the grounds. I'm not sure we'll have room for that, but I think it shows you how beautiful it was. It was very manicured. It was very lovely. And a lot of people from the village worked there, and it was like a family. Next, moving south, we come to Hudson Wire, which was there for quite a long time. Hudson River Marble and Granite Works. Now, we're going to have dates in the photos to show when the businesses existed approximately. Ruppert's Brewery. This is really interesting. This was the best-selling beer in the country at this time, 1900. And they were based on the Upper East Side. Jacob Ruppert was a German beer mogul. This was the Hudson River branch that they opened. His son, Jacob Ruppert Jr., owned the New York Yankees. Turner's Cotton Gin Saws. This is a very early picture from the 1860s. My favorite thing, though, is the baking pan factory on Hunter Street above it. They produced 100 baking pans a day. Mm-hmm. There were cotton gins also manufactured, but they were manufactured right on the water. They were very heavy, and you wanted them to be as close to the boats as possible. It's my favorite picture. This is metallized carbon, which is still there. I think it's the only one of those businesses left. And this was a 1951 industrial tour that was given of the businesses in Ossining, which were actually scattered all throughout the village, but they were really concentrated on the water. Now, Westerly Road, the west side of the tracks, north to south, we begin with Tobin Craft Boat Builders. They came over in 1959 from New Jersey, and they built these wonderful sea skiffs. You're going to see a picture of one in action later. They only did it for a few years, though, because aluminum boats replaced the wood, and now they're Westerly Marina, same family. Rand McNally, which was here for decades, and hired a lot of people, including Jesse Collier Jr., our mayor. And I love this photo because it doesn't really show the factory, but shows the people who worked there. A lot of people worked at these factories, a lot of people in the village. Thousands of jobs. Simplex Rubber, which made a new invention called solid tires. Now this, you'll recognize this brick building. It began as an iron foundry in the middle of the 19th century. It still stands. Everybody says it would be the best brew pub on earth, and I agree. And it held many heavy different industries over the years, including, we'll get to one in a sec. I love this picture. This is Maui Oil. Now what we're looking at is the place where the Sing Sing Kill comes out. I'm not sure when this was taken, but if you look, you can see the Sarah Jenks / Ossining moored there between that little shack and the oil tanks. And that's where she sat for about 10 years until she was moved and she burned by Nyack, unfortunately. She had about 9 lives. Here's another, this is wild. Here's another heavy industry that was in that foundry building, Mosher Water Tube Boiler Company. Holden's Coal and Lumber was at 1 Main Street, which stood about where the parking garage is for the new apartment building. And on the same site, about where Harbor Square is now, Musicraft pressed vinyl records. And this is the hipster's blues. When Musicraft was expanding its factory, they discovered the remains of a very old hotel on the site called the Empire. This is that sea skiff I was telling you about, Tobin Craft Sea Skiff, in action. Sunfish, Suntans, and Sunsets, working title, is describes the river as a recreational playground from yacht clubs to ice boating to swimming beaches. We will start with the boat clubs. The Sing Sing Yacht Club, which morphed into Shadamuk. That is one of the early motorized yachts that had a rather affluent membership. And that is actually the crew, not the owners up there. Shadamuk has had 3 different clubhouses. That's the first one on the top was a Victorian structure. It burned. The second one on the right came in the 1970s or the 50s. I forget. It burned as well. And their new one dates to the 90s. That's a Sunfish Regatta from the 70s, which I love because it shows kids out enjoying the water. Tried really hard to make sure it wasn't all that it was, that we showed men and women, boys and girls, everybody enjoying the waterfront. The Ossining Boat and Canoe Club. That photo on the right of the paddler is actually a photo I first saw on Facebook. I pursued it relentlessly. And it is being retouched. It's a little, stained, but it's going to be retouched and it's going to look really great. That is David Feldman, who was a member of the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club. And you have to love that letter O on his sweater. And that's actually Liz Feldman's former father-in-law. Ice boating was a very big sport, all up and down the Hudson, including Sing Sing Yacht Club. This is basically they sailed. They were on these blades, and they would fly across the ice. And the Hudson froze a lot more often back then, and it froze all the way across, unlike today. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and that's off of Crawbucky. We'll talk about swimming. There used to be quite a few swimming beaches from Sparta to Crawbucky. That is Sparta Rock, where the young ladies are sunbathing. And then the picture on the right is another personal photo a friend of mine gave me of her relatives in the 20s playing at Crawbucky. The fishing life describes the now extinct commercial fishing businesses that lined the waterfront for hundreds of years, going back 10,000 years to the Native Americans. We'll tell the story as best we can in a couple hundred words about legendary fisherman Henry Gordine, for whom the park is named. He fished these waters for most of his 93 years. There he is rowing one of his own handmade rowboats while his crew hauls in the shad nets. The shad used to run so thick each spring before pollution got in the way. The men would catch them. The nets would be, everybody had a fishery that they worked all up and down the river. The shad nets would be set by different outfits every 1,000 yards or so across the river. They would collect the fish, and then they would bring in the shad. They would put them on freight cars that were on rail sidings right nearby, and then they would be taken to the Fulton Fish Market. People would also go down to the river and buy their fresh fish right out of the river. This is an old, very old picture of shad nets being hung to dry. So so you would have seen these nets all, up and down the river. The transformation. I used to work at women's magazines, so I like a good makeover as much as the next girl. Our waterfront has undergone quite a transformation. This photo was taken, we know it was taken before 1949 because the Sarah Jenks is still there. She was moved in 1949. You can see, this is just like an amazing picture. It was taken from the top of the prison powerhouse. I know that because I cropped out the prison powerhouse. That you can see a little bit of it. But, you know, you really get an amazing bird's eye view. And the place was pretty gritty, you know. It was, you know, rough around the edges. You see the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club, bless their hearts, hanging in there on the right by the rail sidings. You see Maui Oil. You see way in the back the Chatham, the second Chatham Clubhouse. Now, ideally, in my ideal world, we would also show this picture, which shows Lewis Engle Park before it was Lewis Engle Park. Now, of course, children play on a wonderful playground and water park in the shadow of that tower. Now, in an ideal world, I would have after pictures taken from the same angle as these. This one should be easy enough to get. This one, not so much. If anybody knows how to get to the top of the powerhouse with a camera, let me know. I should be able to make that happen, you think? On the board of the yeah. Make up calls, right? But we'll have some sort of beautiful after pictures. And it really is a rather, you know, we'll start with when Lewis Engle Park was created in the 1980s. That really began the process of reclaiming the waterfront from its kind of what had become, you know, really obsolete industrial use. It was very polluted. The whole Hudson was polluted. It ruined the fishing business. But I think that the past, 40 years have been a process of trying to reverse that trend. One of the things we're going to mention in the swimming paragraph is Riverkeeper's efforts to return swimming to Lewis Engle Beach by water testing with the local high school students and by trying to clear underwater hazards. So, I mean, I think that's kind of a cool idea. It'd be cool to go swimming. You'd have to have a lifeguard and everything. But so, the status of the project is the copy is almost completed, and then it must go out for approval to you and other consultants. I mean, you should tell me how you want to do this. I was thinking I could just send the files to Abe, and then he could forward the files to you to read. I think it's real important the copy be as accurate and final as possible before it go to Pannier, because I don't want to have to be making a lot of changes. They did do a test panel for us for the river travel. And it looked pretty good. It was just a matter of moving some photos around, but that was just a communication issue. So the images are selected except for the after pictures here. I think Ginsburg may be also providing us with an image. I'm still waiting for that. But the way it's looking, we should be able to get these panels up this summer. So the end result should be informative, educational, and do justice to the beauty of the surroundings. Any questions?
Thank you, Dana. I always learn so much when you come and visit us. In this case, I learned an awful lot about our history, but also just how incredibly busy you have been in the last year plus in this role. Thank you so much for taking on this role so enthusiastically.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Good. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Dana? Yes, please.
Just thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
for
great.
your passion.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
for, really jumping right in and making all the connections with all the people as a volunteer for the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy. I know how much we appreciate your perspective and collaborating with you to work on this project for next spring. We're really excited about that. So, thanks for being there and doing what you do. So.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Mayor Zambrano.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we have an introductory local law number 5 of 2016. Corporation Council will be taking to present.
You have to turn your mic on. There you go.
I'll take it. Okay, this is a discussion about introductory local law number 5 for 2016. This proposed change to our vehicles and traffic law section concerns, actually responds to concerns expressed by some residents in the area of Osage Drive East and West and its intersections with Susquehanna and Munden Drive. So what we're looking to do is to do a simple 2 stop sign and 1 yield sign to make it clear the flow of traffic, the rights of way, and the circulation. I will upload the law if you wanted to proceed to public hearing, and I try to do an illustration. I learn visually, so I always put that out there for those of you who also. It just shows the 2 locations of the stop sign. It would be at the termination of Yerkes Lane where it intersects with Osage Drive West. There is a yield sign at the bottom of the hill, Osage Drive East, where it connects with Osage Drive West right before it comes back out onto Pleasantville Road. So this is an illustration which I will upload to assist people with understanding. The major substantive change that we're looking at, these responses to citizens' concerns about traffic and circulation and parking and the like are coming more frequently, and we would like to be able to respond more appropriately and quickly. So we looked at ways to do that. Manager Zambrano and I have been considering this for a while, and this is an appropriate place to insert this draft change. It would allow simple placements of signs such as this and placing them in the schedules in your code to happen without a local law. This would allow a process which is less than a local law, but it still requires notice, and it also gives the right of veto to the board itself. It allows the public to be educated on the placement of signs or new parking requirements and the like. It allows for that to happen on notice to the public, but it does not require, as you know, it takes 30 to 45 days for a simple change such as this, because statutorily you can only change a local law with yet another local law. So if you're adding this as a local law into your code, which permits this expedited process, these kinds of changes can happen much more quickly. It requires circulation of the draft change to the department heads in question. For example, this would have gone, upon receipt of the inquiry, it would have gone to the police department, it would have gone to you, you would have seen the proposed change, and it would have been published, posted, circulated on the website, and the public would have been able to give some input at that point. If the board didn't want this to move forward, there's an opportunity for the board to step forward and stop the process at that time. So that's what we're proposing in Section 3 of this law. The first 2 sections have to do with the placement of the 2 stop signs and the yield sign.
Okay, so it seems like we have 2 different things to really consider tonight, which is the placement of the signs themselves, and in a moment I'll ask Chief Sylvester, who stayed with us, to be able to weigh in on some items on today's agenda. But then the other is the process, which I believe you were the one who brought it to us, Abe.
Yes.
This concept of being able to streamline the process of getting signs in place while making sure that there is still the incorporation of plenty of public notice to the board, and checks and balances, so if the board is concerned, they can step in. You can't willy-nilly start throwing signs up
Correct.
without
And,
plenty of notice and process.
And it is a practice that is taking place in other municipalities. In Croton, the village of Croton-on-Hudson actually has been doing that for years. I know the village of Mount Kisco, as George Saratani has mentioned it also, but many municipalities have transferred that authority to the managers or the administrators, so that the board is then removed from the process. Not completely, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to go through the normal local law process that all the local laws need to go through by law.
We have the opportunity to step in if we're concerned,
Correct.
but at the same
That is
time, it
correct.
streamlines the process and still preserves the opportunity for the public to be notified of it and for them to weigh in.
That's correct. Yes.
Any questions on that portion of it, just the streamlining of the process and the granting of the power to the manager to get the sign up without having the board needing to pass local law? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I would be, I'm in favor of this. You know, I would want to make sure that, you know, obviously the police chief should be involved, but I would also want to make sure that, you know, that Paul Fraioli and, you know, and the highway department would also weigh in as well, and then the planner.
Yeah.
That's
ju-
included.
Okay, I just, we
I was
want
going to say, perhaps you can describe what is the process if a
Okay,
community
it's,
member brings in a concern.
It's a delegation which is authorized by statute, and once you have delegated that by local law, then the procedure will proceed as follows, that the manager will take the recommendation or the concerns into question. He will consider many aspects, including the volume and nature of the traffic, the needs of the public for parking facilities, public safety and convenience. He's required by the process to obtain an opinion from the police department and state and county officials and village departments and agencies appropriate to the proposed change in regulation. He also needs to publicize it in the official newspaper as a traffic rule and regulation. It would go in the routine public notice location. We would also be sure that we would include posting of the notice in the clerk's office, and also we would include website and routine circulation. And then they have to, it needs to be filed with the clerk so it's available prior to the time that it's published in your official newspaper. And then you have to wait at least 30 days for the opportunity for input from the various places. And then during that time, it can be vetoed or suspended by a simple resolution of the Board of Trustees.
Any further questions or comments on that piece of it before we get into the actual signage that's being explored?
Just had a quick question, and this is in regards to the notifications, the public notifications that we have for the residents. I know we have talked about in the past, and how when a big project comes along and they want to see what is going on. I know we do a lot. We do newspaper notifications. We put in a web blast. We put it into our website. We talked about in the work sessions. We talked about in our public meetings. But I think part of the residents sometimes, because of the lives that they're so hectic, and sometimes they don't watch our meetings, they don't read the newspapers. I know when a project goes in front of the planning board, the building department, they usually have 100-foot radius? Lynn?
For the
What's the radius for notification from the
Notifications of the
planning,
neighbors,
the
is
land
it
use boards in the
100?
village?
Is it 500?
250 feet, is that correct?
Is it 100?
Okay.
So is any way that we can incorporate going forward for something like this? And I know cases like this happen when a group of neighbors come in and do I don't want to say a complaint, but they come with some concerns and the traffic or with a sign or things of that nature, but maybe the neighbor across the street doesn't know anything about it. The person up the 5 houses above the property is not aware, and they come in one day and the stop sign is there and a yellow sign is there. I know that has happened before, and so I'm not sure if the board will feel comfortable enough to part of the notifications to the public will be an incorporation of the whatever that may be, is 150
The letter
foot radius to
notification,
let
you
them
mean.
know to the neighbors itself that this is happening. And if they have any concerns, they can send their emails, they can come into the board, or they can call the village manager. Not sure if
So what you're suggesting is
So-
that we have a similar approach to any change in signage as we do to subjects that come in front of the planning or zoning
I
boards?
believe, yeah, because I think it's just fair enough that we are doing for this particular neighborhood in a way. It's fair enough that we should notify all the residents that will be affected by this change.
So you're suggesting to add then in Section 3 the changes for the delegation. In that section of all of the actions, the prerequisites for action taken by the manager, to include requirement for notification by the village to a particular radius.
I think that will be fair enough, because if someone's coming in and doing an addition in the back of their house, that's the process that they have to go through, sure. So I believe if we are doing the changes and modifications in the public street, we should notify. That's my opinion. I'm not sure how the rest of the board will feel, so I'll leave it up to them.
I mean, you know, I have no objection to it, although, you know, it's time and money and all that other stuff.
Yes.
But I, you know, on the face of it, I think it's probably a good idea. I don't know what anybody else thinks. You know, I mean, I think Trustee Casada is trying to cast the widest net in terms of informing the public of changes that might be made. So I certainly understand the spirit of what he's saying. So
It's hard to argue against increasing notification to the public for changes that might be coming to their neighborhood. That said, it hadn't been considered until now, and the law was drafted without that in mind. So, but we're just at a stage of discussing this, so there is an opportunity to make changes at this stage.
There is, you can change an introductory local law right up to the time that you actually adopt it. So we were going to, I was going to suggest that we put it on calling for a public hearing, you know, and that would be on your next week's agenda. So the public hearing would be in 3 weeks, and it would give us an opportunity to make any changes you wanted. I have to say that the impetus for this was to remove the most innocuous and mundane
I know.
actions out of the realm
Because
of,
it's not talking about constructing
I
a new
know.
building in somebody's
yeah,
neighborhood, it's talking about
out of the
adding a
realm
yield
of-
sign,
of-
but.
of the need for the public hearing and putting it into a notice and sort of a veto opportunity for the board. These are the very, for wants of better words, innocuous and mundane things that are undertaken without the need for a full-blown local law to have to go through. I can understand, you know, even when it was a local law requirement, and you can change a local law by a local law, even under the statutory requirements for local laws, there was no need for public notice. So the more meaty changes to your code that would require a public hearing, such as zoning changes or any other code provision that you would change that aren't signs and parking spaces of that nature, they would still require a local law, and they don't also have this public notice. So
So our effort to streamline it, we're actually making it more onerous than ever before in one way.
So I'll take that back then.
you
I
would
think
make
we can spend
more-
those funds in a
yeah.
different way. I understand. No, believe me, I
I think we
understand.
lost
but-
trustee Levin,
yeah.
actually.
No, but you know, one
No,
of
it's
the
just, it's like, we went,
one of the biggest complaints that we always hear is like, I didn't know that.
yeah.
How come you guys? I got actually like 3 phone calls this past week in regards to what we did for to the energy, the power, the electricity, and they literally were upset. And
Another
why
mailing
is-
went out, so.
Yeah, why is the
Aggregation,
government
yeah.
doing this? How come they have the power to do this? And I'm like, we have been talking about this for the past year.
Oh, nobody's
Longer
watching
than
our
that.
meetings.
So
Longer than
that's my biggest concern. My biggest concern is like we
Accomplish it.
correct.
He who doesn't listen, doesn't listen. So having, you know what I mean, like you're trying to maybe widen the neck, but you're not gonna reach where you wanna go. But for the people that do listen, you're gonna, you know what I mean?
I know.
It's not in the spirit of, I know I lean back. It's not like it's the right idea, but it's sort of not going to accomplish exactly
I know
what you
I
want.
know
It's
what-
going to
what
accomplish,
those
I think,
managers want to
exactly
do.
the other
I know.
way, unfortunately. And what I was saying before, not into the mic, was people that hear us, and people that don't, it doesn't matter how wide the net is. They're not going to hear it, so that's why I was laughing a little bit before.
And to
yeah.
make the public notice to the adjoiners in the nature of a local law, you would really have to do public notice to
Yeah.
all of the residents, and personal mail to all of the residents would be.
Okay,
Quite enough.
so we've had
Thank you
a
very much for
fruitful
entertaining my
conversation, we had a
comment.
suggestion,
Well,
we
it's a good
deliberated, and
idea.
it came to a conclusion. Well done. Democracy in action. Now, back to the other part of the
Yeah.
proposed local law,
Yes.
which is the actual changes of the signs that are being proposed. And if we could have Chief Sylvester join us, because traffic is in your bailiwick, and I know this was considered in a few different times, and you've gotten some feedback from your colleagues in the department. So if you want to let us know your thoughts on it, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, this has been kicked around for a little while, and I've read back on some of the emails. I've spoke to some of the people. I did reach out to some of the residents. Some of the feedback I got was that they were surprised nobody's asked for a stop sign at Susquehanna long ago, or how we've gone this long without one. So residents are glad to hear about that one. The consensus from the folks that I did speak to about Yerkes was that it probably wasn't, a dire need to have a stop sign there, but it never hurts to have one anytime there's an intersection with a three-way turn. And the yield sign just, it's not a stop sign, so it doesn't force people to actually come to a full and complete stop, but it gives the opportunity for traffic in one direction to keep moving, and it should just make things more efficiently. I see no reason not to do this. I think it's a good idea.
Well, any further questions?
I'll just make a comment that I think the yield sign is going to make a difference. I mean, I frequent that particular area of the village, and when I make that turn off of Susquehanna and I'm coming down, people come. It's a blind. Yeah, you can't see what's going on there, and people come flying in from the left-hand side without really thinking that there's something to their right. So I'm certainly in favor of the yield sign for sure. So thank you.
If folks driving too fast is a whole nother problem that we need to deal with in a lot of places too. Sometimes
Even when they're
slow
going
them
the
down, it
speed
helps,
limit,
but
they're not
certainly
looking,
the yield
so-
sign would encourage people to
absolutely.
slow it down.
Thank you.
So that should help.
Okey dokey.
Great. So
Yes.
Yes.
please, I think we're supportive of the entire piece moving forward.
Great.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
It will streamline the process because, again, as it was already been said, none of the changes will take place without the input of the many key players here. So I think that's important to also put out there.
Thank you. So,
Thank
yes,
you.
Cabaret.
Next item on the agenda is we have had a few cabaret license applications sent to us. Unfortunately, some of them are not complete, so we're not going to be able to address them with the board tonight. But in accordance with Chapter 100 of the Village Code, actually, anybody who wants to have any kind of music in the restaurants, live music, has to apply for a cabaret license. So right now, for the board's consideration, we actually have 3 applications, and I will ask the police chief
Wait,
and also.
3 or
I'm sorry.
five?
2 of them were not complete, so
they're
we
not
only have 3
complete.
tonight.
Oh,
not considering.
so-
So we'll
Okay.
have to bring it back for your consideration
Okay.
in the future. So actually, Police Chief Sylvester and a village, the Lynn Brooks Avenue, will talk about the 3 of them. Actually, one of them is Atlantic Bar, Tierras Tropicales, and Serenita Lounge here on 12th Croton Avenue. So with that, I'm going to ask the police chief just to.
Which one are we going with?
Could you name the 3 again? The Atlantic Bar.
Atlantic Bar,
Uh-huh.
Start with that.
Tierras Tropicales,
Those are right next to each other.
Yep.
right, and
Okay.
Serenita Lounge right here on 12 Croton Avenue, right next door here.
Okay. Was it Serenita?
Serenita, yes.
Okay.
Sirenita, right.
Okay.
So starting with the Atlantic Bar, they've been there for a long time. It's a business that we're really familiar with. We have a really, really long list of police activity there. A lot of it comes as premise checks. A lot of people would say, well, those aren't necessarily incidents, but the one thing that we do pull from that data is that this is a place that has required that much attention for us to prevent anything from happening there. I myself have been there for the late night fights and disorderly people, intoxicated DWIs coming out of there, and all of the sorts. Those things often are associated with alcohol and sometimes unavoidable, but one of the things that we found is that the later at night that we have these kind of things, the more we tend to deal with those issues. So my recommendation on this one would be, in the vein of trying to promote business in the village, I understand that folks want to have music in order to promote their business. I think 4 a.m. might be a little bit late, and I think 7 days a week is a bit excessive for that also. We fairly regularly get noise complaints from the area about things like this, so.
Well, we've, the recent cabaret license we gave downtown, we went we actually extended to 2 a.m., right? Didn't we? No, it was 2. Yeah, we went with 2, so, yeah. So, in 7 days, I'm not really excited about that. It is a residential area, and, I think 7 days a week till 4 a.m. is a little excessive. I would agree with that.
So the recommendation would be what if it's not 4 AM?
Well, I can't see giving them more than what we offered the folks here at Carmel Lounge, which was 2 a.m.
Yeah, our recommendation on the last one was 1, and I think
Right.
that the board decided to go
remember
with
that.
2, and
Yeah.
that's board's prerogative, so our hope would
What
be to
is-
at least keep them consistent.
What is the literally? What do they have right now? What do they have? The cabaret license
their
that is
license now?
expired?
I know that the last one actually has expired, obviously, because, and I'm not sure what it was last, actually. I did not get a copy of that.
Cabaret licenses, they typically expire at year's end,
They're
correct?
annual.
Correct,
That's right.
12/31, yes. We have actually, I believe, a representative from Atlantic Bar is here, if the board would like to.
You're from Atlantic?
Mr. Carlos Espinal.
Would you like to, if you could speak into the microphone so that the folks at home can hear you?
I don't speak English very well, but I think I try to do it the better that I can do it. I understand what the chief say. I'm the new owner. I got this business for 2 years. In 2 years, the police station, they don't have any complaint by my name. And they no sell alcohol and nobody like a younger guy and no disorder. The police, I don't have any ticket, I don't have any violation in 2 years. Upstairs, no living people, and the another side is the parking lot for
Seatown.
Seatown, and the another side is the for Goldwings. It's not resident area. In front is the like church or the school, I think so. It's
Across the
nobody-
street, yes,
yeah,
is the
across
church.
street. There's nobody living in this area. That I for 7 days I think is too much.
Okay.
And maybe in the weekends, like Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Sunday?
Well, not really Sunday. Like
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
yeah.
So Thursday,
Or
Friday, and Saturday.
Sunday early.
Saturday, Sunday morning.
I think
Well,
that's-
do you mean Sunday
Saturday
dinner
to
crowd, or
Sunday.
do you mean Saturday night?
No, I mean like for Tuesday, because I try to make a karaoke or something like that. And Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. You know,
Okay.
that's all that I
That-
want to know.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that he's gonna have to go to Sunday from Saturday night
Yeah, that's what he said.
to
Right.
Sunday. So just want to make sure that
Just because it goes past midnight Saturday.
that's
Is
what
what,
it
if you're looking to get it to go until, 1 or 2 a.m. on Saturday night,
Yeah.
Sunday
Actually,
morning.
Sunday.
Another thing, I have my team for security, for everything, cleaning the area outside, and try to people go safe and home, because I don't want to make problems in the village. I try to doing everything right, and because I don't want to give you like a hard time to the police department or to the village, nobody. I try to doing everything right because it's business, and that's all that I want to say.
And what was your name, sir?
Carlos Espinal.
Carlos Espinado. Thank you very much. And so it sounds like we have a revised request.
Well,
Yeah,
is that true?
I'm just flipping through.
Yeah.
Over the reports dating back to 2013. There's 381 blotters at this location, and that's specific to the Atlantic, not associated with Tierras Tropicalis, which is the location next door. Has another 180 some odd reports. It is a steady post for us on the weekends to spend a lot of time sitting out in front of these places. For this year alone, we have March 14th, where Mr. Espinal called because. Or somebody from the location called with an allegation of a violation of an order of protection involving an employee there, where another person was there. They were spoken to
That's a
on.
good thing. I mean,
Yeah, but we
so
want,
they're calling
he just
you.
acknowledged that he called, which
Yeah,
is a
I-
good thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I understand.
So he said- yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
February 28th, we have a call about blocked windows, which is a violation of local ordinance. So I guess they were educated on that one. On January 29th, we had a call. Mr. Espinal called again about a customer giving him a hard time. And going back to December 31st, Those officers then were dispatched for an intox male outside of the Atlantic. These calls all taking place 4 o'clock in the morning. This one's 11 o'clock at night. The next one at 4:34 a.m. And prior to that was 1:30 in the morning. So there's a pretty good correlation between the late night crowd and the trouble that we have, and that's going to be standard for just about any place that sells alcohol. So I mean, I appreciate that he wants to scale back his request. I think that that's fair. You know, we'd like to hold to the 2 o'clock thing like we did with Karma Lounge, and we think that would be helpful.
What does the board think about Thursday, Friday, Saturday until 2 a.m.? Or do you prefer 1 a.m., which was the original request by the police department?
Well, this is the music part.
That's the basic
Correct.
part.
They can continue to serve alcohol by law until
That's right.
4 a.m., correct? But things do tend to quiet down once the music stops. Which means less sales, but it also means less drunken people.
Well, I said, I think 2 a.m., that's 4 o'clock that's not acceptable, so, and we've already given Karma Lounge till 2, so, let's see how 2 a.m. works, and if people don't behave, we can always change it.
Well, in a year, we have to wait for.
Well, I
The
mean,
end of this
well,
year.
no, I mean, we have
Be
the
the end of
the end
discretion.
of this
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
end of this calendar year.
We have the discretion if the police chief comes to us and there are, problems, we have the ability to, we could pull the music permit. I mean, we have the
I don't
ability.
think we can. We went over that with Laura Lee last time. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah,
And
it's-
can we pull a permit in the middle of the year?
I don't recall, I don't recall doing that research, but I would imagine if there's
Oh, if there's a
public
public
safety issue, then
if there's a
y-
public
you always
nuisance,
have the right
we
to- yes.
legislatively would have the ability to
Of course.
withdraw the request. I mean, I'm hoping it doesn't come to
Amend
that.
it,
I'm
condition
hoping
it.
that everything works out fine and this man can run his business the way he wants to do it. I'm just not comfortable going to 4 a.m., so.
I say-
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, Lynn.
From the building perspective, we conducted a fire safety inspection on Friday the 6th, and he passed all three, a cabaret, a coin operation, and the
Beverage?
refreshment. Yes. So building code-wise, fire-wise, we have no issues.
That's good. Yeah, I see you raising your hand. Did you have one thing to add?
Oh, yeah. I understand what the chief say. The thing is, all my customer is working like landscaping, construction, and all the stuff, and especially weekends, they come like late to the bar, like 12:30, 1:30. So how I gonna make it entertainment half hours? Maybe they gonna give me another hour, like 3. I think is fair. And later on, I try to use the U-Bags because when I operated by the cabaret, they give me like the permit like the 3 o'clock in the morning because I gonna be closed. The bar is gonna be closed like 3:30. For take a chance for take everybody out and cleaning and all the stuff.
I will say you have the benefit or the misfortune of being not the first cabaret license to come to this board for consideration, and we've had a lot of conversations back and forth about 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I know I will echo the sentiments of Trustee Codman that we most recently granted a cabaret license until 2 a.m. for another downtown business, and so I'm inclined to be consistent with that for another business, and I imagine we're going to hear a similar sentiment with our next conversations, which might be a little quicker. Anybody else want to comment on the request, the renewed request for 3 a.m. versus 2?
Given the fact that we did just approve a request for 2 a.m., 2 a.m. would be the recommended, and hopefully all cabaret license, maybe that'll be like the new standard where if it's not working, then we'll go back and forward.
Right. It's not a formal standard, but since we keep undertaking this as well, if we set it at 2 a.m. and things are going well, then that probably makes sense. If we have some reason to change it one way or the other, then we can take that into consideration for next year's batch of cabaret licenses, which I hope will be coming to us in November for the coming year. so that the cabarets can continue to operate without interruption or violation.
I mean, you know, the other part of this is that, you know, you're going to have the cabaret license between now and the end of this calendar year. And, you know, we'll see how everything works. We'll see how your clientele is. And I realize you only have so much control over what your customers do. But at the end of the day, you know, we have to be fair to all the other businesses. And if your clientele is, if you can encourage them to behave, you know, I would certainly, and we have good reports from the police department, I would consider extending the hour till later. But for right now, I need to 2 a.m. is where I kind of stand on this. I don't know how my fellow board
Is there
members-
any differing opinion among the board, or are we feeling
No,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday
We talked
till
about
2
this
a.m.?
for a long time on the other requests, and so it's all the same.
Yeah.
Right.
To me, it's the same principles, so I think we're ready to vote.
Okay.
Just to clarify, because this will go on for a resolution, is it Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night into Sunday morning, but nothing on Sunday night? Is that what you're looking for?
Correct.
Yeah, that's
Is
correct.
that what we did
Is
for
it-
the other ones?
No, I think Karma wanted to do Sunday as
They
well.
did Sunday, but it wasn't till
To
2
the-
a.m.
correct,
was
it
like
was 10
yeah, to
maybe?
10 p.m. or
Yeah,
11
something
p.m.,
like-
yeah.
Now,
Just want to make sure that we give him
Does
what
that
is
have
in the motion.
value to you?
that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, oh, sorry. They're thinking the same thing. Is Sunday evening until 10 p.m. worthwhile to you, or doesn't matter? Forget about it.
I try to operate it. The day that I want to operate it by cabaret is Thursday,
But-
Friday, and Saturday.
Okay.
Because Sunday is too slow,
Yeah.
right?
Understood.
I came. to-
Understood.
I
That makes
operate-
sense to me. We just didn't want to. We didn't want to limit
operated-
you if that
Okay.
was valuable.
U backs. I put U backs. I not bring DJ. So, my question is,
Mm-hmm.
when they give me the cover, the permit, like at 2 a.m., so I have to close the bar.
No,
No,
you
no,
do
no,
not
no,
have to
no.
close the bar.
No,
Just
no.
that the entertainment has to stop.
Just the
The
music
music
part.
stops. The bar can be open till 4 a.m. if you want.
Well, the jukebox.
So
is-
the bar.
Well, the jukebox can go.
No,
on
the
past.
jukebox.
Oh, the jukebox.
Yeah, the jukebox is not a part of the cabaret. Right?
What's
So, no, the
electronic
jukebox
music is
is that
kinda-
is part for the corn license.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the corner.
It's a corn
Okay.
license.
Yeah, that's nothing
So-
to do with.
so is that just whenever the business is open, the jukebox will be on?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
just not live music.
It's not
2
live
o'clock.
music.
Right.
Two
No,
o'clock
no
for live
DJ,
music.
no live music,
I'm
no
not putting
performers.
Any,
Okay.
any live music.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. All right. So, I think
So
I
that's
think we're going to hear a similar story from the next two, and a similar outcome, I'm guessing. But
The next
No.
application we have before you is Tierras Tropicales, who is also on 84 Clinton
Next door
Avenue.
to them, right?
Exactly, yes.
we started hearing some of the numbers for your calls there.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
the
not
owner
sure
is
that
here.
We have somebody representing.
Claudio's here.
You're here from Tierras Tropicales?
Oh, we do? Oh,
Claudio.
okay, I'm sorry.
So, Chief. Oh, you're looking it up right now?
The only thing I'm looking back here for is if there was a date and time that he was looking for, and I didn't see that on here. What dates and times are we looking for?
I think it's the
What
same
days?
dates. Same days, yeah, Thursday.
Okay, I didn't see that designated on here. As far as Tierras Tropicalis, he's been around for a lot longer, so Claudio's familiar to us. We know him. Excuse me 1 second. I'm looking at. Pull up his
Doesn't matter,
blotters.
it's the same.
They're not. They're actually separated out differently. So police brought, excuse me, for his restaurant over the past 3 years. There's another 192 blotters from there. They're similar kind of things. Obviously, late at night, people are intoxicated, getting into trouble and stuff like that. They've been operating as a cabaret for quite a few years now. Generally okay. Sometimes we have issues. That's the kind of stuff that happens in this business. So if we could keep him on the same standard as his neighbors, I think that's fair. I don't think there's a lot of difference to be discussed as far as the two businesses directly next door to one another.
No, there's not. Then you don't have a history of reports that where there's particular red flags that we should be concerned about that distinguish it from
Nothing
the
different
other
than
concerns
next
we've
door
already.
or the rest of them yet.
Okay, so Claudio, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Those are the nights that are you interested?
Come
Correct.
to
So yes.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. You were just clarifying the music
Yes.
and can be until
Yeah, the
2
live
a.m.
music until 2 a.m. That's
Right.
it. After that, it's music.
and the jukebox until
Alright.
you
Yeah.
close.
That's right.
Sounds good. All right.
Alright.
So, check.
So,
Building
Lynn,
department, I guess.
Oh, yes, Lynn, thank you.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad you reminded us.
Actually, they're pretty good. They had they had submitted their application way early, late last winter. They failed the initial one in December, but they passed in January. They corrected all the violations, and we had forwarded everything to the clerk back in January. So they're good to go on our end for code violations and everything.
That's interesting. Because it's May. But that's not on you, so we'll just
Well,
figure out where
we sent
the
it back actually before I even got here on January 19th, so
Okay.
it wasn't me.
not sure what happened with the communication there. Well, it's important that we respond with a little more swiftness than that going forward, but I guess we can rectify that as much as possible tonight, next week.
Very good. The next one is Sirenita Lounge. That's here on 12 Croton Avenue, right next to the municipal building. This application actually is being represented by Mr. Gonzalez, who I believe is here today also. Yes. So this actually, he also owns another place in the village on Main Street. That's El Manavita. That particular application we could not bring forward to you tonight because there was some information missing. So we will bring it to you as soon as we have everything else that's required for that. But before you is actually for your consideration the one for the Sirenita Lounge on 12 Croton Avenue. So, Chief.
Similar kind of story. This location particularly has been a bar for many, many, many years in Ossining. It's changed hands over the years several times. This is sort of a new establishment here for them. Same kind of thing we're looking for, just a reasonable time for them to close or to stop their live
What
music.
is it now? How late is it now?
They do not have a cabaret
Well,
license currently.
Yeah, they don't have a cabaret license, and the only thing that I would note is that on their application, this one I believe just noted weekend, so it doesn't have a specific request for what he's looking for.
Okay, but then why don't we ask the gentleman, Mr. Gonzalez?
Hello, how are you?
Good,
Yeah,
thanks.
good evening. I take the same hours, another business, and yeah, we got nothing to fight in there.
Thank you. That makes our job a little easier.
Thursday,
Yeah,
Friday,
Thursday, Friday,
Saturday till
Saturday.
2.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can Lynn update us on her experience at Serenitas?
And we actually have not conducted the fire safety inspection yet. It's going to be done this Friday, so by next meeting, we should have an update as to whether or not they passed.
So
it out.
then, when we vote on it on Wednesday, you will have been able to do the
Hypothetically.
inspections, and so
Yep,
if
if they
everything
pass,
is in
yep.
line, then we'll move forward with that for the same hours. Perfect.
So we will bring these for
Yeah,
your consideration actually next week, and this one only if it's complete. But also, I think what's important is now we are now actually reaching out to a lot of these businesses actually to make sure that they're in compliance with the necessary requirements under the village code.
Okay. Chief?
Yeah, we've been assigning the midnight tours because that's who has the most interaction with the bars, and some of the restaurants are open later, to go around and check some of these things. We found that some places that we expected not to have their permits actually had them in place, and some of the ones we thought were all squared away were not. What we have done is sent people out to go and meet with the business owners to try and help them to secure all the permits that they need, so we're doing that with a lot of folks. We did also make some arrangements with the clerk's office that we're going to start processing the applications electronically so that there should be better accountability for this and things should move faster.
Okay.
That's in place already, so a lot of what we did this week was just shooting emails back and forth and getting things squared away so we could move a little quicker.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll streamline our communication between the departments, which seems to have a little breakdown this time. Now with the other two applications that are incomplete, I don't know how close they are to complete, but if those businesses have all of their information to us, I would not be averse to going into session to be able to deliberate that and have a similar conversation with regarding either or both of those next week. Does everyone share my sentiments?
That could go into old business, sure. That can go into old business or new business next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we can certainly do that. I think that would be the best thing for
Okay.
us to do, and we're anticipating being able to have all the information together. So.
But she,
Which two are we
Which two
are
are you-
It's
on for
El
next week then?
Manavita
107
is
Main.
one of them.
We're going to conduct the inspection on Tuesday, the 17th, so.
Perfect.
And then what What was the other?
And the other one is the,
Pine and Oak?
the boathouse.
Oh, the
right?
boathouse,
I'm
right,
not sure
right,
what
right,
the
right.
status of that one is, but we have the application. Guess we
That's all
just
they
need
need.
to
They don't want cabaret.
finalize that as well.
For the boathouse, we're tentatively scheduled to re-inspect on the 16th. They failed an inspection in early March, so hopefully they'll pass this one.
Okay.
Right. So those are the two that we hope to be able to bring to you in the very near future, so.
Well, we'll see. It would be great if it was next week and just as soon as possible. Thanks for everybody following up on that, and let's keep these moving. Thanks. All right.
Next item is a sidewalk cafe waiver application permits, which under Chapter 216 of the Village Code, it's also required. Typically, the applications are processed in my office and approved in my office after having run them through the building department and the police chief. But also, but in this particular case, because the waiver was required because of the setbacks, it needs to come before the board for your approval. We had actually received a couple of applications too, but the only one that we can bring forward tonight to you is for the Pine and Oak Cafe on Main Street. This has been submitted. We have the application. We have the waiver has been submitted, so again, it's for your review, actually. Lynn, you have any comments about the Pine and Oak Sidewalk Cafe?
The only issue we had is that the building department would prefer to be against the building and prefer that there's some sort of protection for the pedestrians or the people that are eating, because the cars on Main Street are really close, and just to prevent the cars from, pulling into a spot too fast and bumping into a patron of the restaurant sitting and eating their dinner.
That would be different than how it has been in
Right.
recent
Last couple of
years.
right, correct.
Well,
That's the waiver.
Right.
I will say, from a pedestrian functional, I think from a restaurant perspective, they'd probably prefer if it could be up against the building too, because that's easier for the wait staff to not have to cross the sidewalk. However, the way our sidewalks are set up, we've got a bunch of tree wells.
Right.
So
That's the
so
drawing they
we
submitted, kind of had them away and against the curb instead of against the
yeah no
restaurant,
I
so-
know I've sat out there. It's a lovely place to sit out and have something on a
So
late
just to
summer night.
ensure the
But,
safety of the patrons is really
but I'm not sure how functionally it
Wouldn't
could
work.
be
It wouldn't
any
work.
place else.
It wouldn't work.
No, it won't.
Because pedestrians need what? How many feet wide? 3
I
feet?
think it's like 4 feet.
Four.
What we have
Okay.
in our,
So they need a 4-foot passage. There's a tree in front of the restaurant, and it's a really narrow business. It would only be in front of that one window. It's like 2 tables obstructing pedestrians. I don't think that's
I think
even
they're
worth
only
considering.
Right. I think they're actually only proposing 2 tables even out by the curb.
No.
No, it's like,
Yeah.
no,
Can't
it's
be,
like,
I just drove by there.
Yeah.
It's more than
No, they had a
At least
diagram.
at least 4
Yeah,
tables,
there's,
yeah.
there's 4, yeah.
5.
Yeah, 5, actually 5
Yeah.
5 tables, which is what
I
we.
mean, my recollection is that there's no parking spaces directly next to where,
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
right there?
Yeah,
Perpendicular.
Yeah.
And
and yet it's still so enjoyable to sit there on a summer
it
night.
is.
right there.
It's a. Because then you can't block the entrance for the residents as well. So.
Right. Oh, yeah, no, it's like,
Yeah, so you
it's like a
only have-
window.
It'd be one
It's a
table.
2-top.
Literally be one
It
table.
would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and when this initially came in 3 years ago, for its first permit, I believe that we had the conversation and we tried every way, because I believe that Mr. Sirocco stood up and made the same issue, that he really would have preferred it to be against the actual business. But we looked at the possibility of locating it there, and I think the constraints were such that it really limited the possibilities.
For the business as well as for
That's what I
pedestrians.
mean, yes.
Right.
Is there just some way to protect the pedestrians is really what our concern is.
Yeah.
Maybe like some planters or
Pedestrians
You're
have
not
to-
protecting
You mean the people who are in the
Yes,
seats,
the
the
seats,
patrons
yes,
sitting
sorry.
in the seats, because
Thank
it's
you.
not, the
Patrons,
barrier
yes,
between
yes,
the
those-
seating and
Yes.
the cars that are parked on the road is like
Yes,
a
very thin.
piece of fabric.
So there is, can we put more planters, not trees?
There's not enough room
Not enough room, actually.
unless we make the sidewalks
Conceivably,
wider
Take
than
away
what we
some-
have.
take
Sure,
away
we take some
downtown
parking. Yeah, we can take some parking away.
Bad idea. Not
I
having.
mean, the way, that can be solved will be for us to put those parking, like stoppers, I don't know what they're called,
We're talking about bowlers.
Yeah.
Concrete
and There's only
boulders.
5 tables to begin with, and people have to sit on that.
So the handicap parking space is right here, and then there's like
I think there's a space. I think there's a space
It's just
between.
white lines. So technically speaking,
All right, let's
That's
take
what
a
I'm
look.
saying is that it-
You don't think there's really parking there?
You wouldn't be parking there.
Yeah.
There's
Alright.
one spot.
Yeah.
you'd be-
So-
Actually, there's one spot. that
Try
you'd
to
be
get a,
parking.
Yeah, I think we.
Yeah, I think
At an angle, yeah. Okay.
Hold on.
I was just down there, I'm trying to imagine.
so. It's just white lines.
Oh, my phone is slow.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
So Lynn, thank you for weighing in on that. I think functionally and historically, it's worked pretty well as it is. But I know it's come to us because in the past, we had to provide some waivers because it was going to be a certain proximity to the tree well, but did we kind of adjusted that? Didn't we adjust the?
No, they're asking for the same layout, and since there have been no changes to the layout of the public amenities at that sidewalk, they're asking for the same waivers as the last owner and the owner before that.
It just and the board has to keep in mind that actually, if the new owners had not changed the name to Pine Oak right now, they still actually have a sidewalk cafe.
No, we have to
it
renew
actually
it every year.
expired.
No,
in
but they
October.
actually, I thought he came in,
No.
so it ended last year.
Yes.
That's a
Okay,
calendar year
that's a
thing as well.
calendar year.
Which is, which
Well,
that's
actually,
fine.
I know he
it's
came
April
in.
through
yeah.
October.
exactly, yeah.
No, because the last owner, the previous owner, I should say, came in the middle of the year,
Because it gets cold, I guess.
and
Yeah.
anyway,
Okay.
right.
Oh, thank you.
And it expired in October of
I'm ready to
15.
move on.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
shall we put this on for a
All right, so we can
resolution?
put it on the agenda
Okay.
for next.
Would you like a
I'm okay.
resolution?
I'm okay
Okay.
with it.
With the
so-
waiver?
All right, so next, we had another, oh, that's it, that's all we have?
That's what we have
All
tonight,
righty.
actually, but I can tell you though, I have had calls in my office for other businesses that are gonna be putting their applications in for the sidewalk cafe, so.
Wonderful, that will be lovely.
It
We
really
love
would
sidewalk
be,
cafes,
so-
so I hope more and more come forward and
including
we're
a-
able to grant them.
A new coffee shop that is scheduled to be open sometime later this year, so I
Yeah,
think
that's
they're gonna
great.
I'm
be.
very excited about that.
So I have a question. Is there a way that have we streamlined all the permits? Like if I'm a restaurant, like made available sidewalk cafe,
We are,
beverage permit, cabaret license.
we're
Are
actually,
we
the
there?
well, actually, we have already started to actually interface with potential business owners, with that already, actually started just the last few days. But I know Lynn is actually putting together a list of all the requirements, you know, that are necessary to open up any of these kind of like retail food establishments.
This application was thoroughly revised, I think 2 years ago. So this is a brand-new application, and the instructions on it include actual quotes from the code. So it's clear, you don't need any other thing. You can just look right at the application, it has all the information on it.
But he's talking about whether or not, what other permits are needed. in
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
To simplify things for new business owners, to
Yeah.
make sure that they know all the hoops they have to jump through to be
Yeah,
in compliance.
while that's in process, that's one of the things we've been doing is going to the different businesses, and while we check for your liquor license or your cabaret license, we'll say, okay, here's the licenses you have, here's the licenses you may need, here's how you get them. So until we have something formal in place, our late night tours are doing some inspections and sharing that information with the owners.
If I can just add real quick, and this is this goes what Lynn's concern is and the development department's concern is, and there's been a lot of accidents in different shopping centers around New York and either New Jersey and anywhere. Actually, one of them that you're familiar with is that the Golden Horseshoe. A while back, it was a car that
Yeah,
went
I was
through
right there.
that went through a window in
Standing right there,
in
coming out of the.
in my
when that
office
happened.
in architectural world, you know, that actually we ended up fixing, and the same thing happened on a Trader Joe's in New Jersey that my boss, our company, got involved in. So I know what you're referring to. So maybe there's something going forward that we can look into, not just we want the business to come in, we want the sidewalks to come in, just like Village, they're sending all these requirements for this, but we also have to look into the safety of the patrons, of the people that are there. Maybe we can look into planters, you know, very narrow planters, that if something happens in there, so, and that will be part of the beautification process, that we can give it to the downtown as well.
It's even less expensive and less maintenance.
That's
like
pretty,
ornamental
but,
ballards.
but, okay, so
Yeah.
we've gotten a little off track.
Sorry.
But, no, it's all somewhat related, but
But
I.
let's go back to streamlining.
But it's still a flood.
Back to what Montel was saying. So, for the website as well, we need to say checklists. I would suggest, since everybody owns phones, pictures associated with them would be great, so we're not sitting here going, is that like what it really looks like? Unless you've been there. Just ask people to submit a picture of the front so we all can go in the folder. But all about streamlining is like checklists, where they get it. You know, meeting with them is great, but that doesn't mean it's streamlined if it comes to some department here, and that department takes 14 weeks to get something. So all of that work doesn't get it streamlined, because that's not what streamlining is. Streamlining is actually exactly what it sounds like. And that's, I just came out of another meeting, which was, I was late. Honestly, like, I feel like we're almost there, but we're like, just not quite on the streamlining level yet.
Well, we're putting a package together that we're gonna hand to a
Yeah.
lot of the, depending on the type of business, so, you know, we are again putting a lot of thought into it.
It would be a big deal
I
if we
think
get that.
Also, I mean, as it has been mentioned, also, putting information on the website is also critical.
A lot of these businesses want to know in advance, before they sign a lease, what they have to do, who they have to speak to, because the minute the loan comes in, the clock is ticking, and every minute is like $100 for them. And they want to know, like, if I have more than 12 people, do I have to fill a different form than if I had under 9 people? And who do they speak to? And it's really, like, imperative to get the streamlining happening here.
Phone numbers, yes.
In response to your comment, we actually have an opportunity on Thursdays between 1 and 4. They can schedule an appointment, and we actually have spoken to many people before they've actually closed the deals, or what they want to know, how do they go about the next steps in the process, and it's building planning at the table. So we try and bring them in the loop of if they have to appear before a board, and what board, and how long the process might take, and what kinds of plans they need to do. So we've been, so if you get that out there, I'm glad to, let someone know, and they can come in and.
Well, I'm going to talk to you after this about the meeting I just came from, so I was here late, so I couldn't talk to you before the meeting started, but this is a topic, and like I said, I think we're moving, but let's get it, and also for a website, is to figure out how to get this, including meetings that happen a certain day, just goes on the website, so if you need more, here's, ooh.
All right.
You all right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I got a little worried. I know not how to catch you, so. A little scared there. Okay, thank you.
So there's definitely a uniform desire to see it simplified. When somebody owns a business, they don't know the building department from the clerk's office, from the manager's office. They want to go to the website and say, I'm a new business. What do I need to know? Or I just took over somebody else's business. What do I need to know? Everybody wants to be in compliance. Nobody wants to be in trouble, but sometimes new business owners, we love new entrepreneurs. We want them to take a chance on auditing. But if they're not experienced, then they don't know there's 5 more hoops they should have jumped through to really be in compliance. So we look forward to updates on how this is tangibly changing from a customer experience. Thank you.
Next topic is the draft vehicle use policy. We had discussed this with the board.
You know what, does anybody need, I'm just realizing it's after 9 o'clock. Can we take a 5-minute break for everybody?
Please.
Because we've got a couple
Thank
of
you.
things here we want to be able to really delve into. Thank you all for sticking around. We are a little bit behind schedule, so we'll do our best to get back on track. Trustee Bazemore, you ready? Oh man, I just sounded like a 3rd grade teacher. Manager Sombrano.
So, the next item on tonight's agenda is I'm going to present to you
Microphone.
a second draft of the vehicle use policy that we have brought to you back in the fall for your consideration. We did make a couple of minor changes at the suggestions of the board, And actually, Corporation Counsel and I had a conversation earlier today, and actually there's a couple of minor tweaks that she's gonna recommend, like, nothing substantive. So, but again, you know, this is before you for your consideration. And also, one thing I wanna mention, last week when we attended the NICOM conference, actually, this is one of the, although it's not a required policy that municipalities adopt, I think it's something that the Conference of Mayors certainly recommends. The one exists, the one should be adopted. And this is actually, that's the premise with which I brought that to your attention last fall, I think it was in November, because I think it does give the village, I think, better control of, you know, the vehicles, what's being done, what's not being done, and I think it's just, it's better controls, and I think it's just good policy to have something in place
Do
to
you have
be
an
able
extra
to.
copy? Because I'm reading it, it's on my iPhone, and I was looking at it before, but
Yeah, I see the
my
link.
eyes
I'll
are
see.
like getting, they're getting a little,
Thank you.
I have it, but it's, no, I took some notes, thanks. So, what is it that you would like to point out to us?
Well, I think one of the main things that was suggested at the last meeting was that there was no provision for any in the policy for violations. We have added that part of the section 9 violations of the policy. I think that's something again that, you know, needed to be there. There were a couple of other items on the, I think, we made a little clarification, actually, I think, for the purpose of the policy also. I think those were the two major substantive changes that we added to what we had presented to you back then. I know that the village board actually had looked at it. There were, I think, the initial distance that we had actually included there was for the distances that are allowed to travel are 100 miles from the village of Ossining. We had 150 miles, I think, in the first draft, if I remember correctly. So.
I would just ask Corporation Counsel, I know that when we attended that meeting last week, there were some recommended policies. Were there, the only change that we've added is the violations? There weren't any other best practices to incorporate? It's the last section.
That's the meeting I had with the manager
Yes.
today, and there are a few statements of clarification I would like to add to this.
Okay.
Getting that back to you in a red line, you'll see exactly where that is. There's the three major things that they were calling for at NICOM was that the procedures of assigning, and some people with 24-hour, that standards for operating and maintaining the vehicles, and then procedures for the potential sanctions and disciplinary action. So now that we have that violation section in, it's really just some tweaking. Its consistency of language I'd like to be sure is clear, and also I just would like to put a general statement in, is that the vehicles really belong to the public. I mean, they should be viewed as property of the public, and they should be used really for purposes of consistent with providing services to the public. So that's sort of a general statement I want to put up front, just to be clear the purpose of this. I talked about those changes with the manager today, and I've asked to get a copy in Word, and I can incorporate them so you can see them.
Yeah, I just have to say that in principle, I said it when we were doing the budgets, I'm going to say again, I'm actually opposed to how this is done and how this is written. I believe that there should be a fleet, that there should not be cars for all of these individuals. The list, I'd like to know how I can help in looking at a different way of looking at this. What I said last time we spoke about it is that there are 365 days in a year, 250 are working days. The taxpayers are paying for a third of the time that is not being used for business reasons. That's the math. It may not be in real life the way it works. I think that in this day and age, every employee should have a car, and that we don't need to supply cars to all of these people. Some of them, yes. I don't think all of them. I am hoping that there could be a more creative way of looking at this through a fleet, so that people drive to their job, pick up a car, which means that when the cars get fixed, they're there's always a car available to whoever needs it for business, but that people are not driving around in cars, and as these cars age out, that we do not replace for all these people.
Well, Manager Soprano, maybe you can speak to how the names do get on this list, because I understand there is a fleet, and I know that there are a number of employees who do show up at the operations center and pick up their car if
Right.
what they're
That
doing is building maintenance kind of things or code enforcement.
Right.
And most of the people on this list that I'm seeing are people who attend our Office of Emergency Management meetings because they have some role to play if there is an emergency that comes up in the village.
And that's really like the reason why the vehicles that are in fact taken home are because those individuals are expected to be able to respond during any given emergency. I know that, I mean, it has been mentioned in the past, not just by you, Trustee Levin, but also by other individuals, why can they drive to the village and then pick up the car? In instances, for example, we had a major water main break actually this past just a few months ago, where had that individual been able to have drive to the village garage and pick up the car, it would have been, we've had like another 20-25 minutes extra of major water before the repairs were actually attended to. So there are instances where it is actually more beneficial for these individuals, for the village to have these individuals bring drive the cars home. Again, not everybody does. I mean, there's a group of cars that, as you had mentioned, the individuals ride their own vehicles and they come to the village. They come to the operations center, pick up the cars, and they
So the building maintenance foreman, if he drove, the entire place is 3.5 miles, right? Our village, it's about 3.5 miles.
Yes.
So wherever you drive from, you're never more than 3.5 miles away from anything. So the building maintenance foreman gets a car, full-time?
the buildings maintenance.
Is this a list with the bullets? Am I reading it incorrectly?
I believe we just added that.
Right, are all of these bullets, these are all people with cars?
Those are individuals that,
Or is it an asterisk that
those
I
are the
should be looking at?
positions. Those are the positions that have cars assigned to.
Not through a fleet, if it's a fleet.
Right, they have take-home vehicles
Yeah,
because it's been
24 hours
determined
a
that
day.
people on that list should be expected to respond to an emergency situation wherever they are at any given time. It's also an expectation that this vehicle is not their primary vehicle for their family.
That is correct, yes. That is correct.
Because this is not the vehicle that you take on vacation with
Exactly.
your family. This is a vehicle that you have at the ready because you may be
It's
asked to be
meant
responding to
used
an emergency.
For business purposes, correct.
Is there a GPS on these vehicles?
No, there are not.
Tracking-
No.
Okay.
We could certainly, I mean, actually,
But
we're
that
actually
would-
looking at that. Joe actually and I.
I'm not trying to be
Okay.
punitive,
Yeah.
I'm trying
No,
to
no, I
save
know.
money. So you could make them all signed, like you can for other things every year, that they own another car and show you that they own, and they'll say, well, I don't. Why would I own another? Do you own another car? You have a car. Do you own a second car for yourself?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you ask them, right? And they say yes. That's sort of a punitive way of looking at it to prove that I'm trying to just say that I believe that there should be a very, very short list, because in a 3.5, I mean, we're not living in upstate New York where could be 200 miles to some of these places. And you could be on one side. We're talking about 3.5 miles, and almost anything except a fire, including for what you do, to drive to a point, pick up a car that is on the ready, repaired, washed, gassed up, everything done, and drive to any place. The farthest point would be 3.5 miles. I can't imagine, short of a fire, which the chiefs, why this list is so long. Because if you cut this list by about a half, and I did the math on those cars, and I wouldn't suggest selling the cars today. I would suggest that as they age out, that we not replace certain as a matter of policy. I believe that will be a significant savings. I believe that because more than one person has written me an email actually delineated for me exactly what that would equal, although I'd have to trust their math. But just looking at all these bullets, I can't imagine why some of these people can't drive, pick up a car and go, short of the fire.
So what you're suggesting,
Oh,
it
and the
sounds
police,
like,
excuse
it
me.
sounds like what you're suggesting is that when it comes to budget season and we're looking to buy a new vehicle for somebody on this list, that would be a time to have a conversation on,
think
is this
that'd be
really
good.
justified? Let me just point out, there are some incredibly important people integral to the functioning of our village who do not have these cars. In fact, that includes our corporation council and our treasurer are both in this room. But if there's an emergency, you can get to a computer, which is really what we need you to do. So you can do that remotely. So this list was put together with thought. You're suggesting let's have a different threshold for what gets somebody on the list, and by attrition is what you're suggesting.
By attrition, I don't think that if somebody's a job that we need to take cars away at this moment, and I don't believe in being punitive. I do think that I'm looking at some of these and going, when I was at that conference, some of these people are talking about 200-300 miles. I'm thinking, yeah, you need a car. 3.5 miles, not really. I mean, seriously. Most of these, except for
Well,
fire.
I think this is a conversation for us to have with some of the people on this list, and what makes sense, and what sort of experiences do they have where it's been really important to the village for them to get there, and would it make a difference if they stopped at the operations center? And then also, we'd have to figure out logistics of if that were going to be the case. We don't have enough parking at the operations center as it exists, so if we had a pool of everybody wherever they work throughout the village, that would be another consideration. But, that can all be reviewed as we look at capital expenses.
But part of what I think the board needs to take into account in this particular instance with the individuals that are allowed to take the village cars home is again the anticipation of having these individuals respond again on a timely basis.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes with the responsibility of the job, of course, too.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and again, I'm just saying, playing the devil's advocate here. I mean, somebody can say, well, my car is not running, and get the next person. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen.
That's exactly
But I
right.
think that, again, we could find ourselves in a difficult position where we're not going to have people willing to respond, off hours, because we're not providing, the
When we discuss salaries, we discuss people's responsibilities as well, and I was told that some of these salaries are because people have these responsibilities. I was also told that we all were, that some people take up their manager's role, and in some cases do get paid, some don't, based on, so a lot of this stuff does get accounted for. Some people save lives, other people need to be somewhere, and other people can pick up their cell phones and give directions just as easily. They don't actually have to drive over in this day and age. So I think it's time to reevaluate the number of bullets and who gets what. And by the way, we should probably be looking at people who say they should have had a car all these years because things have changed and we have to rethink it. But I doubt that's actually going to be the case for anybody. I think it's the other way around. So I don't know when we're supposed to do this, but
So
I'd like to do it.
the draft vehicle use policy, what you're talking about is having, revisiting some of the actual titles that have a vehicle, a take-home vehicle.
Right.
The rest of the provisions in the vehicle use policy, are people supportive of them? For clarifying this
Can I
and
ask a
putting
question
this in
about the
place?
take-home sentence? Does take-home mean that you have a car permanently, or does take-home mean that there might be a couple of days that I have to take from the fleet and I take it home? When you define take-home, I'm understanding it is
Who are assigned
you're
a car.
assigned a full-time car.
They are assigned a
Okay.
car.
So yes, that
I'm
would be-
assigned the
yes.
car, I'm assigned the vehicle, I drive the same vehicle.
Right. Okay.
Continuously, right.
Okay,
Exactly.
so aside from those provisions, which, that list of things which can be discussed unless and until we buy another vehicle, are there any other questions about the other provisions in the vehicle use policy? Are we supportive of moving forward?
Only that the information that we gleaned from NICOM would,
I'd like to see
that conversation happens just because there were some good best practices there. So.
And if you did the both on disciplinary, you don't have what that would be? It's just disciplinary? It's a comment, what that would actually be?
That was one of the tweaks I was going to be making.
You're
is
gonna
that
you're
it
gonna
set
look
a
into that and
procedure
say,
a
what
little
would that be? Yeah.
Well,
That's tricky.
Well, it should follow the civil service rules as they
Yes.
stand now, and if you have a position that's not subject to civil service, it should mirror that
There
to
are
the best
already
extent.
procedures
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that can be followed.
So we
have to
can
be followed.
reference those. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, so when is the next time we're going to take this up for discussion with those additional?
Well, maybe what we do is we can bring it to the next work session and
Sure.
then just tweak it, and with those changes that Corporation Council has suggesting.
And will you be making changes in the bullet points as well, or?
Well, these are titles, so that's why I was
No,
asking.
the titles won't change unless the suggestion was by attrition. So before we buy another vehicle, let's make sure that it makes sense that this title should continue to have a vehicle.
That was my suggestion. I don't
Right.
know what others think, but that was my suggestion.
Oh, so there haven't been titles added to this?
No.
since-
No,
But
I
and
think
that's
the
what-
last time I added a title, it was added, right?
But that's what I was going to ask because we have.
I don't know that we have a fire inspector, so that
That's-
was my question.
That was my question too.
We're thinking the same.
The other one that I think we modified is the director of planning and building. I think that was the title
Well,
that
yeah,
was modified
that's
instead
right.
of
Well, that
the
we're gonna have to
director of code
modify, you're right,
enforcement.
but
Sure.
I think we need to.
That person's never had a take-home vehicle.
Who? Director of code enforcement? Yeah, they did.
No.
He used to
Oh, he
pick
used a
up
fleet
his
car.
No,
Oh,
fleet.
he had a fleet car?
It's a
Okay.
fleet car.
Okay.
That's why we've added a title, and I'm not sure we have the title of fire inspector at the moment.
That's, yeah, because I checked, and at least in the building code, we didn't have any, and in our zoning, we didn't have anything in there. So, yeah, so.
I didn't know if that meant the person who's on call or the call. I don't know how that department is run.
Right,
In
so-
some cases, the fire department will call an individual from the building staff to meet them at a fire location,
They do.
usually structural fire. So I didn't know if that meant that the call-out person gets that assigned to take, I don't know.
Yeah, because as far as I know, we don't have a fire inspector. I think
but there was
that,
a reason why we left that title there. I can't remember for the life
Okay.
of me right now.
So let's
it's just a
re-
name then. It doesn't have a vehicle.
So
assigned.
we will review the list and clean it up before we actually pass it. And the
double
manager
check
can
that.
talk to some of the department heads and clarify what should be on there.
And the other
what-
thing too, I mean, once the
the
board
reality.
agrees on the actual language, then we need to circulate it to the bargaining units because it does involve some terms and conditions of employment too with the union. So I mean, there's nothing here that they're going to object to, but as a matter of procedure, we have to send it to them for their review. So before the board adopts it, we'll just circulate it with the two unions.
So I'll get it back with the changes, and then at the next work session, and then based upon your choice at that time, we can send it out to the bargaining unit, so they're aware of the policy that's coming forward. We did that with the last one as well.
Okay. Thank you.
And it will have to go on for resolution eventually.
Sounds good. Happy to have this actually moving forward now.
And the last topic on tonight's agenda is we want to talk to you about the 2016 paving projects. Treasurer Thomas Waring is going to talk to you about budget modification, funding request, and bond resolution that's going to be coming to you at the next board meeting.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Trustees. For the past several years, the street paving project has been very limited in the village. We've been relying mostly on the New York State CHIPS aid and also some very limited resources from the village's general fund, or maybe some special monies from developers or other monies from the state. But when we were working on the 2016 capital plan, we actually talked about providing more monies for the 2016 capital plan in order to provide the ability to pave more streets in 2016. So in accordance with the capital plan, the village engineer has obtained a proposal from the village's annual bid contract vendor for street paving in the amount of $674,200, which was, in the area of what we had talked about for the capital plan for street paving project. So we have $230,000 in CHIP state aid that we'd like to allocate for this. And I know we haven't had our meeting with the auditors as yet. They're coming in 2 weeks. But right before the audit started, I had addressed the board when we were talking about budget modifications and how we had a very, very good year for 2015, mostly due to savings in health insurance and some other areas of the budget, and also energy costs that were much, much less in 2015. So the proposal is to use $200,000 of the 2015 fund balance for the 2016 street paving projects. and also to issue a serial bond of $250,000. So that's what I've prepared for you, is a budget modification to establish a capital project to include these three funding sources, including the appropriation of fund balance in the general fund to be transferred to the capital fund, and the bond resolution, which I did receive the bond resolution from council yesterday, which will be on the agenda next week as well, to provide that source of funding.
Questions on the board for Treasurer Warren?
Sure. So was this was budgeted, right?
It was budgeted in terms of, we included it in the capital plan, which just means we're talking about it and we've given tentative approval for it to become a capital project, provided that the board establishes the capital project by resolution. So we're at that stage now to
Right, but
formalize what we had talked about.
But what I'm saying is that in other words, this was planned for within the context of our budget discussions last year, correct?
Yes.
All but the $200,000 that we're requesting that.
Yeah,
the
well,
board-
I guess that's why I want to understand, I mean, I realized we had a huge benefit because of the money we put back in the general fund, right? So, can you refresh my memory? What was the dollar amount of the money that we put back in the general fund?
It's actually almost $2.5 million.
Right. So would this be the first request this year to make a transfer from that dollar amount that we put back in the general fund?
Actually, no, because earlier this year we had talked about how to provide monies for the engineering component of the Broadway Street Bridge,
Okay.
and also for the roundabout.
Okay.
And instead of issuing serial bonds, we decided that the smart thing to do was to utilize some of that fund balance. And I don't think that was like more than $100,000 in total for all the engineering
Just about
work.
100,000, right?
So I guess I'm just trying to understand, where that money's coming from and how it's being spent. With such a large sum, do you feel it's necessary that we borrow the $250,000? I mean, it costs us to borrow, right? I mean, the serial bonds, there's the underwriting costs and all the other things. I'm just, I realize, we don't often have this much money come back into the general fund like this. And to the extent that we don't have to borrow, I guess I want to understand, I want to understand that, So I'm kind of throwing you a curveball here.
I'm guessing that, that is really, like multi-year planning, that, we have this influx of money from the operating budget. We have several major projects, including, the Broadway Bridge itself,
Sure.
which is a substantial
Right.
Amount of money. And I just don't think that we, necessarily wanted to, just draw down on the reserves so much that, if we took a little bit, that would allow that money to be, left behind for something else.
Okay.
Right, and also, because actually the borrowing costs are so low right now, I think.
Okay, I want to just put that out there. I'm not saying that we should go in another direction. I just wanted to understand why. I agree with you that rates are as low as they're going to be. I just wanted to, I agree with what you said, so thank you. Thanks for explaining it to me. And just so the public knows, that we're trying to do this intelligently, and we need money set aside for the unexpected, so.
I'm good, Tom. Thank you.
And I guess next week will be the department managers' report, so maybe we'll get more of an update from Head of Public Works then about exactly what are the streets that I know everybody will be eager to know if it's their street. That I know that Pine Avenue had some work done by Con Ed, and we think it's all done now, so I imagine I understand that may be on the list, but it's not the only one, and that's really paving streets, providing safe water, picking up the garbage. That is the foundation of local government, and we need to do it as well as we can. So I'm certainly supportive of moving forward with having a more aggressive street paving approach than we have in recent years, and it's a good time to do it because we have been very conservative with our money, and we've had the benefit of some savings from healthcare renegotiation and from lower energy costs, and so it's a really smart time to be investing in our infrastructure, and our roads are literally the foundation that we all walk and drive on every day. So I'm supportive of it, and thank you for explaining the reason for the approach that you're recommending financially.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
That's all I have on the agenda this evening, Mayor Garrity.
Right, so then can we have a motion to adjourn to?
You adjourn, right.
Oh,
And then go into advice of council.
yes, we're going to go into advice of council as well as a discussion of issues related to personnel for a specific person. So do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
On the board? All in favor? Aye. And with that, thank you very much for joining us for another interesting and enlightening Village Board work session. We hope you will join us next week on May 18th, and it is a very special week. We will be at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court facility, and it is our annual, the police department puts on, in recent years, a really terrific presentation honoring some of the very impressive work that has been done by our officers and even some community members. So I believe that starts at 6 at Birdsall-Fagan, 6:30. It's a little bit of an early start. So we will post it on the Village Board website, and I'm sure it'll be on social media, and we will have it available for folks to view on television later on. With that, I look forward to seeing you next week, the 18th, at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court facility. This meeting is adjourned.